Welcome, everybody, to the Cincinnati Bengals show on the Gruely True Sports Network. I'm your host for the Cincinnati Bengals show, Mike Goodpaster. I've got my guest host, as always, Ty Robbins, and I want to remind you, the Gruely Truth is powered by betting.net. Betting.net is your best bet for finding an online casino or sportsbook that's right for you. Make sure you check them out at betting.net. All right, Ty, how you feeling? The Bengals won. They're tied for first as the entire AFC North looks like a cesspool right now.
Yeah. Hey, what a difference 5 days make, and 2 wins right back in the race for the division. So, I think they had to work through some things. The line hadn't practiced in the preseason together. Burrow had missed the preseason. I think they just had to gel and work some stuff out. They're certainly not there yet where they need to be. But there's a lot of good signs, especially the defense. The defense has been playing really well, and Rumo has gotten these guys, at least keeping them in the games every week in and week out.
Yeah, and when we look at the Bengals, the thing that stands out to me, there's a ton of offensive problems here. And the thing that stands out is Joe Mixon had another brutal game, 24 carries for 61 yards. That's a continuation of the issue from the prior 3 games. Some of it, I think, is the line. Some of it is probably Mixon himself. And a lot of it, to me, is overall play predictability from the attack that the coaches are designing. This offense needs to figure this out pretty soon, or this could be a long season.
Yeah, when Joe Mixon addressed that this week, or, I guess right before, not this week, he talked about it this week, but right before the Dolphins game, I think it was on Wednesday, he pulled his line together and they talked about the release. They were making communications where they were talking about what they had to fix. He said some of it was line, some of it was him not hitting the hole fast enough or seeing where the holes are. So he said it was a little bit of everything. And I tend to believe too, it's, the plays that are being called. So I think a combination of all of that can still be worked out. One of the things that I'd like to see is I'd like them run more of their backs, They ran Mixon just about all game in that game, all the way to the end. And they could have put P. Ryan in, which was in. He was primarily for blocking. But they could have ran him a lot, and they could have put Chris Evans in because Chris Evans is pretty dangerous coming out of the back.
Well, for some reason, Chris Evans has turned into Rex Burkhead, where they just won't use him.
Yeah, and I don't understand that. We see what he could do in the preseason games. He's got talent. He can be open. And you're not running Mixon the whole game. It's a long season, and you're just running the whole game. I think they got to pick and choose. And Mixon doesn't do as well as P. Ryan when it comes to north-south running. So I just think that they need to run P. Ryan more, give Joe a rest, and then when it's his time to shine, he'll break some of those holes.
Yeah, and you talked about the defense. The defense is what I think took them to the Super Bowl last year, even though everybody talks about the offense. The offense has had issues. They had issues last year, even in the playoffs. The most they scored in the game was 27, and that took overtime to get that against the Kansas City Chiefs. But I think a decision looms on this defense at the end of the year of Von Bell or Jesse Bates. And I think Von Bell made a really clear case for himself on Thursday night with 2 interceptions.
Yeah, I agree with that. Everybody talks about Jesse, and Jesse is a good player, but has he lived up to where he wants to be right now? There's still a full season left. He got that interception to close down Jets game. But Von Bell certainly made a statement, not 1, but 2 interceptions, and all that he brings to the table. But we talk about this defense, it's pretty tough. Lou Anarumo does a good job of containing teams and making the best of what he has. And you can see that because Dax Hill, the number 1 draft pick, is not seeing much of the field when somebody gets hurt, So we'll see. Cam Taylor-Britt just got brought off our IR. So we're going to see if, they got 21 days to figure out what they want to do with him, or if they're going to use him as special teams. But they got a lot of options, which is good. Because, 2 years ago, they didn't have that, right? They didn't have those options, especially online. And I felt like, Tua came in and did the best he could. And, you're never going to live up to a DJ Reader, but you just got to plug the hole until DJ comes back. And I think the line is starting to gel. Henderson's starting to get under his feet on him with these sacks. Hubbard played a great game. Logan Wilson played an exceptional game. Logan Wilson never gets the honors that everybody else gets or talked about, and he's played his butt off. He's stuffed that run, and really kind of picked up where Reeder left off.
Yeah, and when we looked at this, the offense started off on fire. 9 plays, 75 yards, and a touchdown on the first drive. But, of course, then it disappeared. And the thing that drove me nuts is I watched Zach Taylor last week slam his own play call. 2 weeks ago against the Jets, they had a 4th and 1, or they ran wide. He made fun of that. And then this last Thursday on 4th and 1, they did it again. And the thing that really disturbs me here is the fact you were in field goal range. He didn't go for the field goal. He runs another pitch to Joe Mixon, which doesn't work. And I'm sorry, but when your offensive line is not great, and this offensive line is not great, you probably need to attack straight ahead here, especially since you've shown everybody on 4th and 1 you'd like to, for some reason, run wide.
Yeah, I don't know if he relies on the analytical coach. I think when you start to look around the league, I think a lot of those guys.
Well, I'm sure he does, because all those guys suck, by the way.
Well, I look at it and I go, why? Why not? You need a yard. You need a yard. That's what you need. The Dolphins figured it out. Well, I don't know why they think they're going to get this. Or I think the points. You could have really put Miami in a difficult spot by just getting the points. Go for the points, and then later on, try to maybe go. If you're going to go right up the middle, right? Don't pitch it. And I was like you. I was sitting there and I go, man, he just talked about any play but the play I called would work. And then he turns around and does it again. I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's Zach Taylor. I think he's done a good job of changing the culture in Cincinnati. But the play calling is a huge concern. But it is how many teams right now as fans aren't upset with their coach and want him fired? And I think a lot of this comes back to what you're talking about with the analytics, because, dude, when you're coaching football, especially calling plays, to me, if you're a good play caller, you get in a rhythm. You don't worry about what the analytics say. You kind of coach it by feel, if you know what I mean.
Right. And you just got to fill out the game. Joe Burrow does a good job, processing, making adjustments at the line, and using his weapons. They double team Chase most of the game and Boyd, and they left Higgins one-on-one with Xavier. And he's like, you got to go up and make the play. You have to make the play. And that's what he did. And Higgins a lot of yards. He went up and he dominated there, and that's what makes this team so dangerous, because he has so much. You look at Hurst. Hayden Hurst is, coming off this tight end position. They're not just using him for blocking. He's actually going out, and that first catch that he made fired up the crowd. I was at the home Thursday night game, and when he got the extra yards, people were going crazy. They're going nuts. He's firing up the team. So I think Joe is kind of overcoming some of the play calls as the game gets further into like the fourth quarter, and he's making plays. And he's using everybody, right? So,
yeah. And when we look at the upcoming matchup, Bengals Ravens, this is basically for first place. The Bengals dominated the Ravens twice last year. The Ravens are having issues right now. They're 2-0 on the road. They're 2-0 on the road. They're 0-2 at home. And I think they're the first team in like 20 years to blow 2 17-point leads in one season, and they've done it in the last couple of weeks. The defensive secondary has been an issue for them. They don't run the ball like they used to run the ball. The Ravens have issues.
Yeah, I'd say, when you blow those leads, that also messes with your psyche, when you get into the fourth quarter and team starts to come back, you're like, can we finish games? Right? And they haven't been able to finish games. And I think Joe Burrow is going to capitalize on that. as the game goes. Hopefully, they can get a lead like they had the last two games with the Dolphins, and they get a lead and they're not playing from behind, and they dictate how these plays are going to be called. And our defense is tough, man. They're really tough. The two
Yeah,
people
I
you're
think
going
the
to
thing that really sticks out to me is this. When you look at the two teams, the Bengals have the better defense.
they do. I mean, they're going to. They know going in, they play them every year, but they're going to. Who they really need to focus on. They got to figure out how to stop. Jackson, Lamar Jackson. Who's had. Though they haven't had the success, he's played really well. So how are we going to do that? Now they've done that in a couple ways in the past. Whether it's Hubbard that's spied on them or Logan Wilson. So they usually have somebody on them, and the other person, they got decent receivers. But the person that really hurts them is Andrews, Mark Andrews, the 10. That's where Trey Flowers is going to come in, and he really played a role last year. And but you gotta stop those two. It's going to be all day.
Yeah, and see, the thing to me is I don't think Lamar Jackson's playing that well because to me, when you completely do nothing in the fourth quarter of two home games that you're up by 17 points, it's really hard to make the claim that you're playing well. I know his numbers look good, but his fourth quarter numbers at home do not look good. I think that's an issue. And then you don't have the running backs that he's had in the past.
Well, that's true. But I mean, Dobbins is back. So the other thing is.
Yeah, but he's also missed over a year, correct?
Yeah, that's true. The other thing is how much confidence does he have in the coaching plays? You know what I mean? They could have won that game. They could have won the game, but chose to go for it. And that caused a lot of conflict on that bench. It was live, and they were quite upset over that. As sure as
well, he lost 4 games like that last year, where he went for 2, where he had a chance to win. And I'm usually for that, but after a while, after I get my ass burned a couple times, I may, change my mind on what I want to do there. And then he does this. I mean, it's an easy field goal on 4th. I think it would have been like a 25 or 30-yard field goal. And instead, he has Lamar Jackson throw the ball, and you get an interception. So, I mean, there's also dissension because Lamar Jackson is not getting the money he wants. I think John Harbaugh, the way this season is going, will not be the head coach of the Ravens next year.
Well, he certainly didn't make a lot of fans on Sunday, that's for sure.
Well, it's not the first time he's done it. That's 6 games in the last 20 where he's made a decision like that did not work out.
Well, I wonder how that's going to play in this Bengals game on prime time if they get in that position, if they're going to go for it.
If he's done it 6 straight times, he'll freaking do it again. And you know what? We're the Bengals, so it'll probably work. As long as he does it with his backup quarterback.
Well, that's where our line has to step up. I think Hubbard played a great game last Thursday. He really stepped up, and they started rotating. I noticed they were rotating Joseph Osai outside more. They had been playing him inside, so they played him outside. I think once he gets his feet wet, gets a little more experience, I think he's going to contribute a lot more. Like Cam Sample. Cam Sample had.
I think Cam Sample's played really well the entire time he's been here.
Yeah, well, and then B.J. Hill. So you say, are these guys worth the money? If you're going to invest in, your players, are they worth the money? And I think B.J. Hill has really stepped up and showed so far that he's been playing tough. It's been hard to run, on the Bengals and score. They usually, to hold these guys to field goals, especially a team like the Dolphins, a high-powered team, with those receivers. That speaks volumes for the Bengals defense.
Yeah, and you get that last decision. Lamar Jackson with 4:15 left, 4th and goal from the Buffalo 2. They decide to throw the ball, intercepted. John Harbaugh afterwards said on the decision to go for it on 4th and 1, it gave us the best chance to win. The Bills drive 12 plays, 77 yards, kicked a game-winning 21-yard field goal as time expired. So, I mean, this is the thing, though. Does that tell us maybe that the Ravens defense that their own coach doesn't believe in that defense anymore, where he thought he had to score a touchdown to be able to win the game there?
I think it does, and I think they're going to really be pressured. Got a new defensive coordinator. Martindale's not going to be blitzing as much. I'm sure they'll be blitzing, but there's not going to be blitzing like they had last year. So they're in trouble, man. They got to pick their poison. Who are we going? Are we going to cover two and try and stop the big plays? Are we, going to try to focus on, Joe Mixon, even though the running game hasn't been where it is? If he takes off, that's going to open up a whole nother can of worms for those guys. Because if they get a lead, which, the last 2 weeks they have, it'll be interesting whether they choose, if they win the coin toss, whether they get if they're going to, take the ball and march down the field. Because last year, they wanted to get the ball, score at the end of the half, and then get the ball again at the beginning of the third and score again. But this year, that hasn't worked out so well. So they want to get off to a fast start. And it really puts the ball and it'll put the ball in the Ravens' court to see what they're made of.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, when I look at this Ravens team, I just don't think they're that good. I mean, Lamar Jackson's a very talented guy. Last week against the Buffalo Bills, they actually, I think, had time of possession was like 38-21 in Baltimore's favor. They actually ran the ball better than they have been over the last few weeks. They still lose the game, and their third down efficiency, 6 for 13. When you look at the stats, they should have won the game probably, but they came up short. And right now, the Ravens haven't made the playoffs in a couple years now. There's got to be some dissension. You got Lamar's contract issue. The Ravens defense, I mean, it seems like all they do is draft defensive guys. They got some injuries. Secondary is not as good as what I thought it would be. I don't know about you, but I thought they would have one of the best secondaries in football when they added Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame, and it just hasn't worked out for them.
Yeah, I agree. So this is a big game. It's a divisional game. They're going to be hitting very hard, and we're going to test these Raven corners, and we're going to test the safeties. And I think that Jamar Chase still hasn't had his game that he's wanted. He's dropped a few. I mean,
well, you know what I think that is, though? I think what we see is the Bengals are being treated like the Kansas City Chiefs were last year with Tyreek Hill. A lot of teams run cover two. The thing to beat the Miami Dolphins was the Miami Dolphins played man a lot of that game. They doubled a couple guys, played man on everybody, and I don't think that is how you want to play the Cincinnati Bengals. To me, with the play calling I see, teams that run cover two, you mix it up between a regular cover two and an inverted cover two. That's what they did to slow the Chiefs down last year. And I think we've seen so far this year, outside of the Dolphins game, cover two, inverted cover two is most of what we've seen as defenses against the Bengals. And my concern is if that continues, I don't know how many points the Bengals are going to be able to score consistently because the play calling, for some reason, does not attack cover two in an inverted cover two. It seems like there's a lot of passes, especially after this first drive, even on Thursday night. A lot of passes are like short. And by short, I mean, you're just throwing up 2 or 3 yard passes. And the thing is, they're running cover two because they want you to do that.
Yeah. So we'll see. They know what the problem is now, and they know what team's going to run on them. And so they have to figure it out as a coaching staff, as a team. And I mean, at the end of the day, you want to have Joe Burrow back there. You want to have him processing. He'll find a way if he has time. And I feel like he's feeling more comfortable in the pocket.
Yeah, but don't you think a lot of that has to do with the Miami? I mean, this is the thing. The Miami Dolphins have no pass rushers. I mean, that's, everybody was hyping up the Dolphins, but the Dolphins have no pass rushers and no running game. It's hard to be a contender when you don't have that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this will be another good challenge and see where they are. I still don't think you have the pass rush you had in the first week with Watson, or in the second week, with Dallas and Parsons. I don't think you have the type of players. They're going to be good. This is the NFL. They're going to be challenged, but Unless they have those types of pressure. And these guys are getting better. I like Volson. I like the interior a lot. I think they're getting better. I think they're getting more comfortable. I'm still leery of Collins. I mean, I don't know if it's his back. I don't know.
And Jonah Williams sucks, so we can't get away from that.
Jonah
That was, by the way, I'm sorry my phone rang. It was a Rocky music because every once in a while Sylvester Stallone calls me, and that's what I got as a ringtone for him.
But, those guys, the interior is playing great. I agree. Jonah hasn't had the year so far that we expected him to. Hopefully he picks it up, and Collins really.
Wait a second. Why wouldn't you expect this from Jonah Williams? It's the only thing we've ever gotten from him.
He didn't play. When you looked at last year, he was the most solid person on the.
He was terrible.
Yeah, but he was
terrible.
The solid person on that line last year.
Dude, that is like saying that's like me going to midget wrestling and saying, "Hey, I'm the tallest one here." That's obvious because everybody else is a midget. When everybody else is trash, and you're the best one, you're just the best of the trash. I will tell you exactly what Jonah Williams' problem is if you want to know. And I have this from very good sources. Jonah Williams went to Alabama. Now, steroids you can get caught for a lot easier. He's not nearly as strong now if you watch him from his Bama film. Plus the fact that Frank Pollock has not done a good job at coaching him. That is the only thing that I would see. Because to me, his hand placement is horrible. He plays a little high. He leans. He's terrible. I mean, so we get played about La'el Collins, but La'el Collins has shown us before he can play in the NFL. Jonah Williams never has.
But
I guess we'll never have Jonah on the show either. So go ahead.
Yeah, he hasn't had that. He hasn't had that game that we saw, or the games that he had last year, even with Dallas. I still think he has back issues, and maybe that's why people weren't so hot to grab him in Dallas to get something from him, out of him when they were looking at maybe trading or just cutting him. And so he's got to figure it out. He's got to do a better job. But those ends really have to figure it out. Those tackles on the ends have to really contain.
Well, I'll tell you what, though. I think it's obvious Hayden Hurst is a big upgrade from C.J. Uzomah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's a better route runner. He's better at the red zone. We got to do a better there too. Get down there, and then we got to score. So I think these are things that they will improve on. Hayden Hurst showed with a touchdown, on Thursday that he's going to be a threat when you get in there, and that's just one more person that can handle the ball that has proven that he can take care of business. Now, back to Chris Evans. If we can get Chris Evans into the game a little more, I'd be happy.
Stop saying it. They're never going to let him play. He gets to return a kick. Unfortunately, all the kicks go to the end zone. So This is what I think. This is a huge game. If the Bengals win this game, if you look at their next 6 games, they go to New Orleans. They host Atlanta. They play at Cleveland. They play the Panthers. They go to Pittsburgh. They go to the Titans, which I think the demise of the Titans is greatly over-exaggerated. I think they're still going to win the AFC South. But when you look at that, you've got 5 games in a row headed up to the Titans game where the Bengals should be the favorite. If you get this win, you could go into the Titans having 6 straight wins, be 8-2, and then you've got the Chiefs, the Browns, the Buccaneers, and the Patriots, where I think you can go 2-2 right there. So then you play the Bills, then you get the Ravens again. I mean, they're set up right now that this has to get done now because the easy part of their schedule comes after this Ravens game.
I agree. This stretch is going to be important, and I think they all know what's at stake. They didn't really panic like everybody else was panicking, and they know what they need to do. And I'd rather them start gelling now and figure it out and have that break going into the tougher part in the second part of the season. So I think they really know what's at stake because they control their destiny, right? They win, they're in first place. The Browns, lose. Who do Browns have this week?
Oh, nobody Nobody cares who the Browns have tied. They're the Browns. No matter how good they are, they'll screw it up.
Yeah, that's right.
But
Let's
that was rude on air, wasn't it? But I didn't know it was coming. It's one of them to just snuck up on me. The Browns this week will be playing the Chargers. So that's probably a loss. I don't think they're probably going to be able to score with Justin Herbert. Then they play the Patriots. Then they go to Baltimore. They play the Bengals. They go to Miami. They play the Bills. The Browns will be eliminated before they ever get to Deshaun Watson, I think.
So what I mean, so this is a huge game. This is, and I know both teams know this. You know, it's going to be prime time. They're going to be fired up. They'll be well rested. I'm looking for them to come out with a W on this.
Yeah, and then when you look at the Ravens' schedule, similar to the Bengals, they will go to the Giants, which will be a tough game because I think the Giants have really changed their culture with Brian the Ball, even though they have no quarterback. Then they host the Browns. They go to Tampa. They go to the Saints. They host the Panthers. So it's really similar what the Bengals do. I think this game is imperative. They need this game if they want to be a team that can win 11 or 12 games this year. I think they need to win this one. I think if they don't, you're looking at 9 to 10 wins, which will probably still get you in the playoffs, but you're going to be seated pretty low, and it's going to be much more difficult than last year. But I will also say this. I will also say this, though. I don't think anybody in the AFC looks that great. Nobody in the NFC looks that great right now. I mean, because to me, the Philadelphia Eagles, who have they beaten? When you look at the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs just lost to the Colts last week. So don't read too much into beating Tampa. And Tampa's missing offensive linemen. They're missing wide receivers. Tom Brady's wife done left his ass. So, I mean, everybody is in disarray right now. The Green Bay Packers are 3-1, but for some reason they can't score points. You know, they've got offensive line issues. Every team has issues. I think at this point in the season, I think this is the most wide open season I've ever seen in the NFL. And the fact is that the Bengals could start clicking. Some really special things could happen. On the other hand, everything could go south real quick because it has for a lot of teams we thought were going to be good this year. I mean, the Rams, I think, are in desperate trouble right now. And that's because you don't let go of your defensive leader in Von Miller. They should have kept Odell Beckham Jr. They signed Allen Robinson, which I think was a poor signing. I think he's a good player, but he's hurt all the time, and now they're not using him. They've got no running game. The offensive line's not as good. You know, the San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo's Jimmy Garoppolo, which means you better put some guys around him that can do it for him. Because to me, Jimmy Garoppolo is Andy Dalton. And I really wish the Bengals would have signed Andy Dalton in the offseason to be the backup quarterback. That way on 4th and 1, we could stick him in for the quarterback sneak because he was really good at that.
Well, I think they were in this position last year where they held, you know, all the cards. They had to win games and knew what was at stake, right? So they had, especially a different game. You got to win it. You got to win. You got to.
Yeah, but you know what? Last year, Ty, the issue was they screwed some stuff up early, kind of backed themselves in a corner and had to get out of it. It's really hard to do that in back-to-back seasons.
Yeah, well, they know what they got to do. I think the other thing that we got to look at too is primarily everybody's healthy besides DJ Reader, and that's huge.
Yeah, but that's a huge loss.
That is a huge loss, but compared to having 5 huge losses, you see what I'm saying? So
yeah, but you know what? I think DJ Reader accounts for like 3 huge losses all by himself because I think when you talked about Logan Wilson, I think the most underrated guy in his defense is DJ Reader. DJ Reader, I mean, won them that Tennessee game last year.
Right. I'm not saying you could replace him easily, but compared to one guy versus, you know, in the past where we've had 5 and 6 guys down, that makes a difference. So everybody's coming in, they're healthy, they're all familiar with each other. You know, you just got to make sure Jackson doesn't, you know, get all these extra big plays, and Mark Andrews is left wide open. And I think you win this game. All
right, so give me your prediction. I know you say they're going to win. What's the score going to be?
I'm saying 28-26. I think defense, I don't know about the Ravens, but I know the Bengals defense will be pretty tough, but you just don't know what Lamar Jackson's going to do. So I say 28-26.
All right, I'm going to say Bengals 27-23. I think to win the game, I think this is the start of a run for 5 or 6 games. Then they'll play the Chiefs, and we'll see exactly how good they are. So
sounds good.
that's the way I would take it. Yeah, and I think they're better than the Chiefs. I think they have more talent than the Chiefs, but
I agree.
All right, Ty, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Joe Kelly will be back with us next week. He had an issue. He had to go fix his daughter's car. So we will be back. What is next week? So we'll be back Wednesday night at 7 o'clock for the Bengals Weekly Show. Joe Kelly will be back. But Ty, as always, it's been great. You want to tell everybody about Ty's Take and where they can find it on Twitter?
Oh, yeah. So you can find Ty's Take on Facebook, or you can find it on Twitter at Ty's Take. And you can find it there. And
come on, Ty, you got to know your own Twitter handle. Jeez,
it's Ty. It's a long day for me. It's a long day. So you can I do preview every week on the Bengals. What to look for, and some of the top. So check it out. Ty's Take.
All right, you can follow the Grueling Truth at grueling_truth. Also, check us out on Facebook. In about, let's see, make sure you check out the NFL prediction show every week. I almost said in 30 minutes, but this show is recorded. It's like on Thursday or Friday nights when we're going to run it. But we will be back next Wednesday live, hopefully at 7 o'clock. But for now, I want to bring up betting.net too. How could you not let me bring up betting.net the whole show, Ty? But it's not just sports betting. Betting.net compares the best online casinos. Sit back, relax, and play the top online slots, poker, and table games. Betting.net. Also, in the link to the description down below in the YouTube video, you will find a link for our top recommended site for betting on the Bengals to the game this weekend on Sunday night. Make sure you check out my Bengal Raven preview article on thegruelingtruth.com, which will be out probably Friday night, Saturday morning. Ty Robbins will be out whenever he gets the damn thing done. So keep an eye out for it. But for now, for Ty Robbins, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.